What we doing, friend? Are you gonna listen to my story? So, we started out very early because we don't want anybody getting our spot, and we're driving up the canyon. And we get to our spot, and we're the third car in
You
the
left
spot.
so early.
And we got there like 30 minutes. We're just gonna sit there and wait for the light sun to come up before it was legal shooting light. But I told Dad, I was like, well, the car in front of us, they probably went up one way, and then there was a car that it was there before us, but kind of parked at the bottom of the area, so it ended up being behind us. But two guys got out, and I was like, I think they're going up the other way too. So we got our side to watch.
Because today was opening day.
Opening day of the
deer hunt.
Rifle deer hunt. Then we're watching, and I see two guys with flashlights. See them going up kind of to the left, but basically where we're watching. A spot where I've seen deer before. And so I was like, oh man, if there's deer out there, they're scaring them away before it's even light enough to shoot. But
so you just stayed in the car.
So we stay in the car, and we're watching, and like with my binoculars, I can see a little better than without, even in the dark. And so I was watching this meadow and watching the line between the meadow and the edge of the trees. And last year, that's how I saw a couple bucks. And so I was trying to do that again. Of course, I wasn't holding out a lot of hope because that was just lucky that it worked out that way last year. And sure enough, I couldn't see anything. It got lighter and lighter, and I started looking more up on the hillside, and still not seeing anything. Now, this is unusual for this area, because usually there's at least some does up on the hillside. I'm watching and watching. Finally, it had started raining, but then it paused for a minute, and so I thought, me and Dad both said, we're going to get out of the truck and look even better. And so we got out, and we're glassing, looking through our binoculars up and down the whole hillside, and we're not seeing anything except for those two hunters that were sitting on top of the hill. But they were in a good area. If you were gonna hike up in there, that's what I'd do. But they're kind of watching down, and
so they were watching the same meadow.
They were up on the hill, kind of looking into this little bowl.
Okay.
And so me and Dad were looking more this way where they couldn't see, so that we're not encroaching too much.
Okay.
We did check their area. They didn't have any deer in there anyway.
Okay.
But then it was incredibly windy. Usually rain or snow, deer don't care, and they actually prefer that. They'll be out longer if it's rainy or snowy because they eat more to keep themselves warm. But wind will get them to hunker down, and it was super windy at first. And so I told Dad, I said, I think that all this wind, they're getting out of the wind. So I said, we need to get where the wind's blowing this way, and we need to get where we can look back at a ridge where they'd be on a ridge behind the wind, so the wind's not blowing them, right? So I said, let's go down the way and see. There's several pullouts. Let's go down and see if we can find a spot where we can watch back where there's not a couple of hunters on top of the hill. And he said, okay. So we went clear down, and a lot of other people had the same idea. There was people in a lot of the pullouts, and all the pullouts were on the other side of the road. It was kind of sketchy to get over to them, so we just ended up going down to the point where you get to where there's like a lot of private land. And then I told my dad to flip around. I was like, okay, let's head back up. And heading back up, driving slow, watching, trying to see what other people are looking at, if they're seeing anything. And we get to a good spot. I'm like, okay, there was a good spot up here. If nobody's there, let's park there. Nobody's there. Perfect. We park. literally like 10 seconds later, a truck parks behind us. And, come on. So I'm looking with the binoculars, and Dad's looking with the binoculars.
People were just following you.
Yeah, and I'm feeling these people behind us, and I'm just like, find your own place, you know? But, okay, so I'm like, why can't they just find their own place? And then about 10 minutes later, we're not seeing much, and the guy in the truck behind comes up, and he knocks on the window, and so Dad rolls it down, and the guy says, hey, are you guys hunting, this side or that side? Because the road is kind of the divider between units.
Right.
He said, oh, we're on this side. And he's like, oh, him too. He said, well, I'll let you guys hunt this area. I'll move on.
Because you were both
since
on the
we're
same
both
side.
hunting. He had hoped maybe we were hunting the other side, just like we had kind of hoped. But
that was nice of him.
So he moved. Yeah, it was. And so he moved on, and but like just a short little bit later, my dad pulls out. Like basically, he moved on, and within a minute or two, my dad pulls out, and I was like, oh, maybe since that guy was leaving us be, we should have like been a little more thorough. We hadn't really seen much, but I thought maybe we should have been more thorough. But then I was like, yeah, whatever, I mean, that guy probably would have seen something too, and stuck to it more if he had seen something. So we're going, and then the next pull out, we see that guy parked looking, and my dad says, oh, we're gonna leapfrog. And so we come this way, and
about what time was it now?
By this point, it was, let's see, legal shooting light was 7:17, and it was probably about 8.
So pretty, not too far.
It was about 8:40.
Not too late.
Yeah, it was about an hour and 20 minutes since we had started hunting. And so we passed that guy, and just a short little bit after we passed him, my dad says, hey, is that a deer up there? Now, I didn't know what he's looking at.
Were you pulled over at this point?
No, he's driving like 10 miles an hour. The speed limit there is like 40 or 50.
He's like driving and looking.
I was like, ooh, we could get rear-ended. Hopefully not. I mean, it's opening day of the deer hunt. People should know. They should all just drive slow. But, so, yeah, we're kind of creeping along and looking, and he says, hey, is that a deer up there? And I look up, and I see a deer butt right in the road. I'm like, yes, it is. And it goes off across the road and into some bushes. And what I didn't know at the time, but later my dad said, is that he was actually looking at a white rock or something up on the hillside. And so it was really good timing that he said that, because otherwise I might not have looked up. I had been looking down. I think I was checking my phone or something, looking at the map, and so it really worked out. And I'm just like, oh, and it's like boom, boom, boom.
So then did he see the deer hopping across the road?
I think he did say that once I said, oh, yes, then he saw it too. And then I saw it go into the bushes. I don't know if he saw it go into the bushes. He just saw it, or see exactly where, but he saw it, I think, the butt in the road. And then, so we pull up. Turns out there's a pull out right there where that deer went into the bushes. So he stops there, and we're watching, and it's raining. And we're watching, and I'm like, man, it's probably just right in here. Like, there's just some bushes, and then the river, and then the hillside. And so we're watching for that deer to go up the hillside, but we're not seeing it. And I'm like, it's probably just sitting in those bushes. And my dad says, well, you got your deer call. Why don't you blow on the deer call?
Oh, my God.
Oh, yes, I do.
Did you have your gun ready and your bullets ready?
I had my gun ready, yes. Don't remember if I had bullets in the magazine or not. You cannot have it in the chamber or in the car. So
right.
I may have had them in the magazine. I can't remember.
But
anyway, so I blow the deer call just once. Waited. didn't hear or see anything.
So you got your windows down, obviously.
Then, yeah. And then I thought, wait a minute. We're sitting here, we're watching this hillside, but the thick bushes between us and the river kind of goes like this. And I was like, I'll bet that deer followed the thick bushes around. So I noticed the thick bushes kind of go around and a little behind where we're at. And I thought, I'll bet that deer went down there. So I get out. I think my dad got out too. And I put a bullet in the chamber, I'm pretty sure. Because I was like, just in case, I'm getting out of the truck. I'm getting out of the truck. I'm going to put one in the chamber just in case. It'd be, but... And then I realized, okay, I'll get out. I'll walk up the way a little bit, just a little, because then it was kind of more open where you could look down the river and see what was back this way, to see the hillside this way if that deer went that way. So I go over there, and I'm not seeing anything. I'm using my binoculars, and my dad gets back in the truck, and I thought, the thought came to me, it's probably just a doe anyway. But if I can help it, I need to confirm, because maybe it's not. And so I'm standing there. And then across the way, there's some treetops. And then the hillside. And just above the treetops, a deer steps. I see a little bit of movement out of the corner of my eye. And it's a deer. And I'm like, whoa. So I bring up my binoculars to see if it's a buck. And I bring up my binoculars just as the deer's head lifts up. And I see right between its ears, and I see antlers. I was like, oh, it's a buck. And so, normally you would look with the rangefinder, see how far away it is or something. I just ripped the cover off my scope on my rifle, and I'm thinking to myself as I'm doing it, I hope my dad sees this. And I pull the gun up, and then the deer's still there, and I find it, and then I had to zoom in my scope. You got to turn it like this to zoom it in so I could get as good a shot as possible. Of course, I'm looking above brush and treetops and at an uphill angle, and so there's nothing that you can set the gun on to steady it. And so I'm just gonna have to hold it like this and pray for a decent shot. And so I zoom it in, and I see him, and I'm kind of wiggling, and I'm trying to be patient and wait until my wiggling gets fine-tuned. And the thought came to me, this deer is standing still. That's rare. Just shoot. And so as soon as it crosshairs went over his vitals one more time, boom! And I'm not sure if Dad was out of the truck yet or not. I think he was close, or maybe he was climbing out of the truck. I don't know. But boom! And then I reload, and I don't see it with my eyes, so I pull up my binoculars to see, okay, is he there? What happened? And there's all these rocks falling and a commotion, but I don't see the deer. And then I pull my binoculars down and just look with my eyes for any kind of movement, of the deer running uphill or something, because they don't, more often than not, even if you get a good hit, that deer is going to run a ways. So I'm trying to see, where is it going? And also remember where it was so that I can go and look for blood to find a blood trail and find it. And my dad gets to me, and he's like, did you get him? And I said, I don't know. I said, I shot, and he's not there anymore. and I don't see it going uphill anywhere. I said, and there was a commotion like downhill. I said, I really hope that he just tumbled down. Or he at least ran down. I don't know which.
Hopefully he didn't get smashed.
And then Dad says, well...
Was he watching from the car?
No.
Oh.
Well, he
like
was
with his
watching
binoculars.
me, but he didn't see the deer. And so I pointed it out to him where it was, and he says, how far was that? And I said, I don't know. I didn't even check. He says, I bet it was about 100 yards. I pull it up and check with my little rangefinder, 98 yards.
He's good.
So that was pretty good. And I said it was big enough. It was a buck. I'm shooting it. But so we're waiting a little bit. We're not hearing anything, not seeing anything. And he says, now we got to go across the river.
Dang. But you had your waders, though, or boots.
My dad had his waders that go up to about his hip. And I had my boots that go halfway up my shin.
Was the river deep?
The river was about twice as deep as I was hoping.
Oh, man.
So we looked at a couple different spots, and we settled on one, and my dad's like, it's deeper than your boots. I said, well, I got to go make sure if I got that deer or not. Mm-hmm. And so I said, it's okay. I'm wearing wool socks, wool thermals, that will insulate me even if it's wet. And I said, plus I've got pure adrenaline running through me now. So I said, I'll be fine.
Dang, so how cold was the river? Like 12?
My way around. And we both crossed the river, and of course it was like mid-thigh.
I told you.
On the deepest spot that was unavoidable to get around. It was the least deep spot of the deep, but we kind of get up and we start climbing it. I'm realizing, oh my goodness,
steep.
This is like steep.
Holy cow.
I was worried about Dad's hip and everything, so I'm like,
did he have adrenaline?
Maybe we can probably a little bit. And I was like, maybe we could keep along the river bottom, just on the edge, which definitely was fine for him because he had the little bit taller waders. For me, I had to be a little careful, and I did some in the river and some up. And so I can kind of do this, but I mean, it wasn't that far, 100 yards, right? So we're making our way down there, and he's like, do you remember which two trees it was under?
Oh my goodness.
I said, well, it was either those two or those two, I think. And so we're going, and then we get there, and I remembered there was like a dirt and rock area under one of the trees that the deer was standing in beneath the tree. And so we got to where I could see that dirt rock area, and I was like, this is the spot. And so we're looking at it, and it's steep. And my dad's like, you're going to have to go up there. Or he might have even said, we're going to have to. And I thought, you can stay here. I'll go up there and see if I can see any blood or anything, And then I'm getting ready to go up there, and I kind of go like this. And I see a dead deer, and I'm like, oh, there's a dead deer over there. Like, like when you see one on the side of the road. And then, there's my deer. That's my deer. Oh, Dad, it's right there.
Nobody has to go up.
It's right there. Nobody has. He rolled down for us. And he's just laying there dead. And so we're like, holy cow. Oh my gosh. And it was pretty treacherous getting over to him. They're just boulders, and they're just sitting there. When you step on them, nobody's stepped on these things. Nobody's walking up there. And so they roll and everything. It was pretty hairy, but I walked over, and I gave him the poke with the gun to make sure he was dead, and he was dead. And I was like, oh, he's got testicles. Good thing I didn't mistake doe for a buck. Although I was pretty certain I saw antlers. There, I see his head. The binoculars, I tell ya. Or it must have been the angle of his head, because usually I have to strain and everything to see. Oh, it's a little 2 point. Here's this little spike. 1 inch shorter of antlers, and technically it wouldn't have been legal because they have to be 5 inches. And this thing was like 5 inches, no bigger. But I was like, I don't care about the antlers. I'm excited. I got a deer and it's the meat and everything. And so, oh my gosh, I'm like, how many years has it been? How many years? I started hunting deer when I was 14. And I took a couple of years off, here and there. So it wasn't a full straight, but 22 years ago, I started hunting deer. And this is the first one I finally got. It was so exciting and everything. So many little things. Had we been, I say 5 minutes ahead or behind of what we were, we would not have seen that deer. Probably even less. Probably like 1 minute. Had one car been ahead of us, or so many different things. Had I just said, oh, it was just a doe, or it probably was just a doe, and not looked. Had we stuck to our original area and not changed because of what the weather was doing, there were so many things that had to go just right for me to get that buck. My insane shot, just freehand, which is really hard to do. And in fact, it did not go where I was hoping, but luckily it was a kill shot anyway. But yeah, it was quite a bit higher than I had hoped, but I just, oh my gosh. It's like surreal. And then we're just sitting there like, oh my gosh, what do we do now? Now we gotta gut this thing or something. And Dad said, let's just cut it up. And I said, okay. And I said, well, can we move him down there where it's less steep? So we kind of rolled him down a little further to a little bit more level spot. It was still pretty rocky and steep, but it was more manageable. And oh man, and then Dad helped me. He did the back legs, I did the front legs. Dad did the back straps, and I dug out the heart because I wanted to make sure I got that. And it was just, I don't know, everything you plan for, but then so many things can just go wrong, and this time it all went right. So I'm happy. I'm very tired. It was a lot of work. We spent 2 hours cutting the meat off the deer, and then when we got home, we spent about 3 hours cutting all the meat up and packaging it and everything, picking the hair off. That was quite time consuming.
So when you take like the meat off the back, do you like skin it right there, or you just cut the leg off and throw the meat in a bag with the hair and everything?
You can do it both ways, but we skinned it right there.
Oh.
And yeah, and Dad actually boned out the hind legs.
So
he just took the meat off
there.
the bones, and then I just cut off the front legs because they're easy to cut off. And then so we had the bones of the front legs at home that we had to cut them off. But yeah, so we got some little white wrapped packages in the freezer now. I'm excited about it, and I'm gonna fry up that heart later tomorrow.
That'll be another video.
Yeah. I know, I'm so tired. Oh, but it was great. We're driving home, and I'm just like, it feels wrong to be coming home at I think we left at about 1 p.m. So we were done and back to the truck and had the meat in the cooler. And Dad said, "Hey, we have enough time. You want to go fish for an hour?" So I said, "Yeah, let's go fish for an hour." So we fished until about 1, and then we headed home and stopped once we got to town and got a fresh bag of ice to cool it down even more. And probably not necessary, but we wanted to be get it cool as we
Quick as
could.
possible.
We were soaking wet by the time it rained the whole time we were cutting it up, and it luckily it did stop raining while we fished. But,
So you're cutting up the meat off the deer, and you normally be covered with blood.
yeah.
Was it just rinsing it off your hand as you were cutting it? That's so cool.
The only part was at the end when I so when you do it that way, you don't have access to the chest cavity because you didn't gut it, right? So I cut 2 of the ribs and pulled them out, and then that made like a little opening where I could reach my hand in. And I'm just literally going by feel. I pull out, no, no. And then I felt it, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's got to be the heart." And I pulled it out, and yep. And then that was a very bloody moment. But yeah, I mean, by the time I got back to the truck, my hands were relatively clean because of all the rain.
Nice.
I think that's the story.
You're sticking to it.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any other. I'm sure I forgot some detail here or there, but I tried to remember it all.
So did any hunters that you saw or passed you see you after you got the deer?
Not that I know of, and I purposely once I popped up from the river coming back because I was holding the head because I wanted to do a European mount of the head. And then half the meat was in my backpack and half was in my dad's. I'm holding the head. I'm like, well, that's obvious, right? So I purposely just, as soon as I popped up, I went straight to the truck and I set the head behind the tire because I was like, I don't want a lot of attention about that, you know? So I did that, and then my dad came up and we got the meat in the cooler, and then I was like, oh, might want to put this head in a bag in the back of his Suburban, and so we did that. But yeah, so yeah, I didn't want people to be like, oh, dang it, you know, like that one guy, if he was like, dang it, why'd I, you know, I left them that other spot, and then they come around and get a deer. But I think he had parked. He wasn't gonna get that deer either. He wouldn't have seen it. But yeah, it was fun. And then we did, before we had left the original spot, we heard some shooting, and we went back up there to fish, and we did see a couple of guys come out with a little 2-point too. So it was a good.
At this point in this economy, you take whatever meat you can get if it's legal,
yeah.
right?
It was a good morning.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, that's the end of the deer story for this century, I guess.
For this time, but
oh, it's so exciting!
Right while we're out there, you know, cutting up that deer, I'm thinking, I want to do this again. It's not like one of those like, well, now I've done it. No, I want to do it again.
And get better and better at it.
I want to get better at hunting them and better at cutting them up.
Yes.
It was a little bit some trial and error, but I tell you, you can watch as many videos as you want how to do it. You need the experience of cutting of it, getting in there and doing it to see how, like, the skin just to cut through was so tough. But then once I got it, you know, it was like, oh, okay. And I could kind of peel it down for the most part. There were some areas like around the neck and then the shin where it was really, really stuck on. It was tough to get. But yeah, it'd be good to do it more times and learn better how to be more efficient.
I think the videos that you watch, maybe those people, they've done it a bunch of times. Yeah. So they're like, swipe, done. And you're like, wow, they do that so fast. But they've probably done it billions of times.
And they make it look so easy that in your mind,
I could do that.
Like, it doesn't stick in your mind how did they do that? Because they just like moved. I don't remember how, but yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you got one.
Yeah.
Makes me happy, and I'm glad you had time to go fishing.
Thanks.
You look so happy.
I did. I caught a 9-inch brown trout as well.
You look very happy. Thanks. Are you happy?
I'm happy. That was, oh my gosh. I was almost in tears when I saw that buck just sitting there. We got him. Because I was so sure. Like, I have done this before where I shot and I missed. And then, the buck runs off, or you think it's there and you go up there and it's not, and there's no blood, and you're like, oh man, I must have missed. And you search anyway to make sure, but it's so disheartening to do all that work searching and everything, and you didn't get it. And you had the adrenaline of, I think I got it, and then and I was definitely halfway expecting that. I mean, I kind of thought, because I didn't see it run away, but
you saw the rocks fall.
Yeah.
That right there made me think maybe like it fell. Maybe it was too close to the edge. It fell. It couldn't run.
I mean, it was just on a mountain like this, and so when I shot, it just fell down. Luckily, it wasn't very high, so it didn't get like bruised up or anything too bad. Nice. But yeah, it was. Oh man, just he did. There he is. What? Like, there's the buck.
We don't have to climb up
He's
there.
ours. Yeah. We don't gotta go there. We can just walk over there. Oh man. And I got one thing. I can't forget. While I was thinking about this, the last several years, probably 5 years, 3 or 4 years, I've been, really focusing hard and trying to learn more, and because I decided I want to get a buck, and I knew I want to get like a good picture of me and the buck. Like sometimes you get and people are holding them up, and it just, maybe it's the moment. It's hard to get a good photo in the moment, and the moment doesn't last long because you got to get that thing cut up quick. You don't want it rotting or anything. But some pictures just don't appear very respectful, or there's just blood pouring out of their mouths, or different things. And I thought, I really want to get a picture of me and my buck when I get one, that looks respectful. And to me, that means it looks not like I conquered this beast, but like,
oh, you're so sweet.
Like we're buddies, and so luckily a dad was offered, and he's trying to, I just had him record because I figured I could take a still from his recording, and I tried, and I kind of held his head up and on my lap and stuff, and I didn't want the gun in it because that to me is more, not against anybody who does that, but to me that's more like I conquered this animal, and I didn't want that. And so he did that. But then afterward, and I was cutting my tag, because you get a tag that you have to put on the antler of the buck and keep with the buck, and you cut out notches for the month and the day and the sex of the animal. And so I did that, and then my tag was in there, and I thought, I'm just gonna get a selfie really quick of me, the deer, and the tag sitting there. Or maybe the tag was already on it and the notches were just there, the cutout notches. I don't remember now, but I got this selfie of me with my arm around this buck's head. And I feel like afterward I looked at the photo and I was like, that is the picture I wanted. A picture that looked like me and this deer are buddies. And you got to remember that when you hunt, I shot at this critter and I'm all excited. I've worked so hard for this. And in a moment, there it is, and I've got it. And at the same time, in a moment, a life is ended. And I'm just so grateful. Because I feel like there's some people that believe, and most people probably don't, but the deer knows who's hunting it, and it will decide if it will let them take it or not. And so I was just really grateful that after all this time, a deer could think that I was worthy of it. And I tried to do my best to get as much of the meat as I could, and especially the heart. And I took a picture of where the deer was, because I like to, when I've shot grouse or something, and then when you're eating it, it's like you're getting a part of the woods, the location you're taking into yourself, and you get a little more woodsy. So I did that, and I hope that I respected that deer enough. And I'm really grateful. And I'm really grateful to my dad, because he did so much work helping gut it. And then he did like 90% of the butchering at home. Because I was like, I don't know. And he's like, he's done it 20 years ago. And so he's like, or 30, 25 years ago. So I'm really grateful to my dad and to everybody who helped me. Cody said a prayer last night that I would get one, and I did get a good feeling right when she said that. And Kennedy has supported me, and I just appreciate everybody who's helped me get this deer.
I have a question.
What's your question?
Can we name him Jimmy?
If you want.
She wants to name the deer Jimmy.
If you want.
Not Jimmy, because that's our card name. We gotta name him Billy.
Oh, Billy. Okay.
You can name him Billy.
So when you look at your mount on the
We
wall,
gotta get a plaque that says my name is Billy.
here rests Billy.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. You paid for it, you get to name it.
Yeah.
My feet are still really cold.
Well.
And I still have a cow elk tag.
Woohoo!
3 weeks. 3 weeks.
Oh my gosh. Hope there's room in the freezer.
There's
There's still a little bit of room. Okay, good. All right.
It was just a little buck.
Okay. All right. Well, we should go for now. I need more tissue. Thanks for making me cry.
Sorry.
And we will see you guys in our next video.